The knock came exactly at midnight, sharp and certain, echoing through the thin walls of a house that had forgotten what laughter sounded like. Daniel froze with a chipped mug of cold coffee halfway to his lips, staring at the Christmas lights he had hung only for his daughter who wasn't even there this year. Outside, snow fell in quiet surrender to the night, covering the street in silver. No one visited him anymore, especially not on Christmas. And yet, the knock came again, steady, deliberate, as if whoever stood there had crossed more than just a snowy driveway to reach him. Before we step into what happened when Daniel opened that door, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who still believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to the channel if you believe that even the loneliest nights can turn into miracles. Daniel Carter never imagined he would spend Christmas Eve alone at 34. 2 years earlier, his wife had walked out, leaving behind unpaid bills and a 5-year-old daughter named Lily who clung to him like he was the last safe place in the world. He had fought for custody and won, but the victory came with a cost. He worked longer hours than his body could handle as a senior operations manager at a fast-growing tech logistics firm, trying to keep their small rented house warm and stocked with cereal Lily liked. The company's rise had been meteoric ever since the new CEO took over. A woman known for her icy precision and impossible standards. Her name was Victoria Hale. Victoria Hale was the kind of leader people whispered about in hallways. She had stepped into the CEO role at just 38 after turning around 3 struggling subsidiaries and doubling profits in record time. She was brilliant, composed, and distant. Daniel had seen her only a handful of times in person, usually during company-wide meetings where she stood tall speaking about efficiency and vision, her voice firm but calm. To Daniel, she was a figure from another world. Tailored suits, black car with tinted windows, assistants who moved like clockwork around her. He was just another employee in a crowded room. The year had been brutal. Daniel's department faced layoffs in March. He survived the cuts but absorbed the workload of 2 colleagues who weren't as lucky. He began waking up at 4 a.m., preparing Lily for school, then rushing to the office before sunrise. There were nights he returned home after she had already fallen asleep on the couch waiting for him. He carried guilt like a second shadow. He promised her every December that Christmas would be magical, no matter what. But this year, everything had shifted again. Lily's mother had unexpectedly asked to take her for the holidays, claiming she wanted to reconnect. Against his instincts, Daniel agreed, telling himself Lily deserved time with her mom. He had watched them drive away 3 days before Christmas, the car disappearing down the street while Lily waved through the back window. The house had felt hollow ever since. On Christmas Eve, Daniel tried to distract himself by cleaning, then by watching old holiday movies on low volume. He placed a small gift for Lily under the modest tree, a second-hand art set she had begged for. He planned to give it to her when she returned. By 11:30, he had given up pretending the night meant anything. He sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the blinking lights, thinking about how life had shrunk to responsibilities and silent rooms. That was when the knock came. At first, he assumed it was a neighbor needing help. Maybe someone's car stuck in snow. He opened the door without checking who it was. The cold rushed in, and with it stood Victoria Hale. She wasn't wearing a power suit. Instead, she had on a long dark coat dusted with snow, her hair slightly windblown, her usual perfect composure softened by something Daniel couldn't immediately name. Behind her, a sleek black car idled at the curb, its headlights cutting through the snowfall. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Daniel was painfully aware of the worn sweater he wore and the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. He couldn't comprehend why the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company would stand on his porch at midnight on Christmas. Victoria's eyes scanned his face, not with executive assessment but with something far more human: concern. The months leading up to that night had quietly connected their paths more than Daniel realized. In late October, Lily had fallen ill at school. Daniel had left an urgent budget review meeting to pick her up. He didn't know that Victoria had been present via video conference observing the team's responses. Later, she requested a private file review on Daniel after noticing his performance metrics were slipping despite longer hours logged. She discovered more than numbers. She learned about his custody battle, his overtime requests, the fact that he had declined a promotion earlier that year because it required relocation, She saw the handwritten note he once submitted to HR, asking if unused executive holiday party funds could be redirected to employee families struggling with medical bills. The request had been denied quietly. Victoria had never known it existed. In early December, she began conducting anonymous site visits, something she occasionally did to understand ground realities. One evening, she arrived unannounced and saw Daniel still at his desk long after most lights were off. He didn't notice her standing by the glass conference room. He was on the phone with Lily, apologizing for missing her school play rehearsal but promising he would attend the real one. His voice cracked when he thought no one could hear. That image stayed with Victoria. Her own Christmases had been different but equally empty. She had grown up in a wealthy yet emotionally distant household. Success was demanded, not celebrated. By the time she became CEO, she had everything society admired and nothing that made holidays meaningful. Her father had passed away the previous winter, leaving behind an estate and a silence that echoed through her penthouse. So on Christmas Eve, instead of attending another elite charity gala, she found herself reviewing year-end employee summaries alone. Daniel's file surfaced again. A line caught her attention. Declined holiday bonus advance. She had approved bonuses weeks earlier. Why would someone raising a child alone decline financial support? Impulsively, she asked HR for his address under the pretense of delivering company gift baskets to select staff. She drove herself, dismissing her driver halfway through the trip, wanting no audience to what she barely understood herself. Standing on his porch, she carried not a corporate basket but a simple wrapped box and an envelope. Daniel stepped aside awkwardly, inviting her in from the cold. The house was modest but tidy. A small tree glowed in the corner. Only one stocking hung above the fireplace, with Lily's name stitched in uneven red thread. Victoria noticed immediately. She handed Daniel the envelope first. Inside was a letter personally signed by her, notifying him of a new leadership initiative, family-first scheduling, remote flexibility options, and a retroactive grant for employees who had taken on additional workloads during layoffs. Daniel's name was at the top of the list. He read it twice, struggling to process. The financial grant alone would clear his lingering debts. But it wasn't just money, it was acknowledgement. Victoria then explained, without corporate language, that she had come to thank him. She had learned about the budget reallocation request he made months ago. She admitted she had been unaware of how disconnected executive decisions had become from employee realities. She told him his quiet integrity had forced her to rethink how she led. Daniel felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest. For so long he believed his sacrifices were invisible. Hearing that someone had noticed, even someone as distant as the CEO, felt surreal. The snow outside grew heavier. Midnight passed unnoticed. Victoria's composure softened further when she saw Lily's small drawing taped to the refrigerator, a crayon picture of her and Daniel holding hands under a giant yellow star. Written above in wobbly letters were the words, "My dad is my hero." Victoria asked where Lily was. When Daniel explained, a shadow crossed her face. She admitted she had nearly forgotten it was Christmas Eve until she saw families through lit windows during her drive. Something shifted in the quiet room. Daniel offered her coffee. She accepted, sitting at the worn kitchen table as if she had done so many times before. For the first time in years, Victoria spoke about something other than quarterly growth. She shared how success had isolated her, how leadership often felt like standing on a mountain where no one else could breathe. Daniel listened, not as an employee, but as a person who understood loneliness intimately. Hours seemed to collapse into minutes. Then Daniel's phone buzzed. His heart leapt. It was a message from Lily's mother saying Lily had developed a high fever and was asking for her dad. They were at a nearby clinic. Without hesitation, Daniel grabbed his coat. Victoria stood up instantly and insisted on driving. The black car cut through snow-covered streets faster than Daniel's aging sedan ever could. He barely questioned why she was still there. He only cared about reaching his daughter. At the clinic, Daniel rushed inside. Lily lay on a small bed, cheeks flushed but eyes lighting up the moment she saw him. Relief flooded his body. It wasn't severe, just a winter virus, but she needed comfort more than medicine. Victoria remained quietly in the background, watching as Daniel held Lily's hand, whispering reassurances. She witnessed a kind of strength she had never measured in profit margins. When the doctor confirmed Lily could go home, Daniel faced a dilemma. His ex-wife had already left for a night shift job, and the snowstorm had worsened. Victoria solved it simply. She offered to drive them both home. Back at the house, Victoria surprised herself again by stepping inside rather than leaving. She helped Daniel settle Lily on the couch near the tree. The little girl, half asleep, looked up at the unfamiliar woman and smiled shyly. Victoria introduced herself softly, not as CEO but just as Victoria. Lily noticed the wrapped box Victoria had left earlier and insisted her father open it. Inside was not something extravagant, but a professional-grade art set. Paints, brushes, sketchbooks. Victoria explained she had learned Lily loved drawing. Daniel stared at the gift in stunned silence. It mirrored the second hand, set under the tree, but this one represented possibility without compromise. For the first time that night, Daniel's eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. They sat together as snow continued to fall outside, the small living room warmer than it had been in years. Christmas had arrived quietly, not with grand gestures but with presence. In the weeks that followed, changes rippled outward. The company implemented flexible schedules and employee support funds. Productivity increased, not from fear but from loyalty. Daniel accepted a revised promotion that allowed him to work partly from home. Lily's health improved, and her laughter returned to the house. Victoria began visiting more often, not for business, but for dinner, for art shows at Lily's school, for conversations that didn't involve balance sheets. The distance between CEO and employee dissolved into something neither had expected but both deeply needed: partnership built on respect. Daniel realized that strength wasn't just enduring hardship alone. Sometimes it was allowing someone to knock at midnight and step into your broken, beautiful life. And Victoria discovered that leadership meant more than directing a company. It meant seeing the people who kept it alive. If this story has touched your heart in any way, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who might be spending their own Christmas alone. Before we close, I have a small request. Comment the word miracle if you believe that even the coldest nights can bring unexpected warmth. That Christmas, Daniel didn't just open his door to his CEO. He opened it to a future where he was no longer invisible, where his daughter would grow up knowing that kindness can travel through snowstorms and knock when you least expect it. And Victoria, who once commanded boardrooms with unshakable certainty, learned that the most important decisions aren't made under bright office lights, but in quiet living rooms where one small tree glows against the dark. Sometimes, the greatest gifts don't arrive wrapped in gold. They arrive as a knock at midnight, asking simply to be let in.